Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1133 for November 2nd, 2025. Coming up in a few minutes.
Most people were coming up and saying, I've had Sovereign now, I've had Sauternes, what else do you have? And I've only been doing shows for about 18 months, but that was the first time that most people were coming up to the stand and already knew about us. So that was a really, really exciting development, I would say, in terms of Tully and the role and exposure and the people that we're now reaching. That was really exciting. It kind of makes everything that we're working on kind of almost silently and a little bit under the radar in these tasting sessions and new product development all the more worthwhile because you feel like you're going to reach people.
Stacy Longworth is the head blender for Scotland's Tullibardine Distillery. I spent some time this week on a Zoom call chatting and tasting whiskeys with Stacy and Tullibardine marketing director Ros Frame. Our conversation spanned everything from the distillery's history to their expansion into Irish whiskey after buying the Connacht distillery and renaming it after the town of Ballina. That's just ahead on WhiskyCast In-Depth. I'll also have my tasting notes for a couple of Tullibardine single malts in the What I'm Tasting This Week department, and we'll also have Behind the Label and much more. The news is next on this episode of WhiskyCast, whiskey's first and longest-running podcast series.
Gifting season's right around the corner. Luckily, you don't have to overthink this one. Dewar's 12-year-old, finished in first fill, unrinsed bourbon casks. It's the kind of gift that makes you look good while making them feel special. Stick around, I'll explain.
Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory, this is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Let's begin with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. How about some good news to start the week? Campari Group has turned around its fortunes. The Italian owner of Wild Turkey and Glen Grant reported a 4.4% increase in sales for the third quarter of its fiscal year, on top of a 3.5% increase in the second quarter. Those gains have offset disappointing numbers from the first quarter, and Campari is up 1.5% for the year so far. CEO Simon Hunt told Global Drinks Intel his company is heading in the right direction. The news is not so bright for Remy Cointreau. Sales for the 3 months ending in September were down 11% from a year ago. The company blames subdued consumer demand and high inventories in the U.S. and China. Remy Cointreau owns Bruichladdich and Westland whiskies. Now for an update on the Uncle Nearest receivership. The company has not filed for bankruptcy, despite what you may read on social media. However, owners Fawn and Keith Weaver have agreed to turn over financial records for 10 additional businesses that they own to determine whether those businesses should be part of the receivership. That includes the Humble Baron Bar at the Nearest Green Distillery in Shelbyville, Tennessee. It's owned separately by Keith Weaver for licensing reasons, but Uncle Nearest paid to have the bar named as the world's longest bar by Guinness World Records, and the receiver believes it should be considered an asset of the distillery for that reason. British Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveils the government's autumn budget later this month. Once again, there's a call from the Scotch Whisky Association and other groups for a freeze in excise duty on spirits. Duty has risen 14% over the past 2 years, and the SWA has linked those hikes to a wider growth in inflation and increased government borrowing. Canada's largest whiskey producer is getting a new CEO. Florence Tresario has been named by parent company Pernod Ricard to take over Corby Spirit and Wine effective January 1st. She takes over for Nicholas Krantz, who will return to Pernod Ricard Group. Tresario is currently Global Senior Vice President of Investor Relations for Pernod Ricard. Lots of new whiskeys to talk about this week. Knob Creek is releasing its oldest bourbon ever, a 21-year-old that's said to be the oldest bourbon ever released by the James B. Beam Distilling Company. It carries a recommended retail price of $249.99 a bottle. Lost Lantern Whiskey is targeting Scotch whiskey lovers with its fall collection of American whiskeys. There are 7 whiskeys in the collection, including 3 single malts from the award-winning 888 Distillery in Nantucket, Rhode Island, along with 2 vatted malts. The collection will be available starting November 12th. Kentucky's Town Branch Distillery is releasing one of the oldest American single malts on record. The 16-year-old American whiskey is the second release in Town Branch's Archive series and is a sequel to last year's 15-year-old release. Just 57 bottles are available with a recommended retail price of $400 each. And Jephthah Creed Distillery is releasing its annual batch of red, white, and blue bourbon just in time for Veterans Day. Part of the proceeds from each bottle will be donated to the charity Pause for Peace, which provides service dogs to veterans and other first responders. Each bottle is priced at $75 and will be available starting this Saturday. Elsewhere, the House of Suntory has teamed up with Japanese artist Hiroshi Senju for a limited edition release of Hibiki 21 and Hibiki 30 whiskeys. Senju's artwork graces the presentation boxes for both whiskeys. The 21-year-old is priced at $900 a bottle, while the 30-year-old is priced at $7,500. Of course, we need to note that the House of Suntory is a sponsor of WhiskyCast. Also from Japan, Hatazaki Whiskey has launched a triple cask reserve malt whiskey in its range. Part of the whiskey was finished in umeshu plum liquor casks at the Kaikyo Distillery in southern Japan. It's priced at $75. Turning to Scotland now, the Glasgow Distillery Company has unveiled its latest single malt, an 8-year-old whiskey matured in ex-bourbon casks and bottled at cask strength. The whiskey comes from 3 peated casks and 3 unpeated casks, and will be available in the UK and select export markets for £57 a bottle. The Dalmore has unveiled this year's Distillery Select series of 3 single malts. There's a Cabernet Sauvignon finished 13-year-old, a 17-year-old Loire Valley wine cask finish, and a 28-year-old Colheita Tawny Port cask finish available in limited amounts. No word on pricing, and we need to note that the Dalmore is a sponsor of WhiskyCast. Wolfburn Distillery is getting ready for the holidays with its 12 Days of Christmas collection. The first 2 malts in the series, Partridge in a Pear Tree and 2 Turtle Doves, are available now. Both are available in 700 milliliter and 350 milliliter bottles for $79 and $34 respectively through the Wolfburn website. And Johnnie Walker has released its annual Lunar New Year edition of Johnnie Walker Blue Label. The 2026 edition celebrates the Year of the Horse and was created in collaboration with renowned fashion designer Robert Sun. It's available for £230 a bottle. You can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's check the calendar and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. Bourbon's Bistro in Louisville, Kentucky has a Castle and Key bourbon dinner on Wednesday night. Jephthah Creed Distillery in Shelbyville, Kentucky has a Veterans Day event and release party coming up on Saturday. Glasgow's Whiskey Festival is also on Saturday in Glasgow, Scotland. Tickets are still available for Whiskey Fest New York on the 14th at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. I'll be at the New Brunswick Spirits Festival in Fredericton, New Brunswick, coming up November 18th through the 22nd. And the Whiskey Lounge hosts a Berry Brothers and Rudd tasting on the 20th at Seven Oaks Pub in Manchester, England. The Whiskey Exchange has its annual Whiskey of the Year selection tasting that same night at its Great Portland Street shop in London. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at whiskycast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. Japanese whiskey began with Shinjiro Tori's vision to reflect the true nature and spirit of Japan. The House of Suntory was founded on these principles, guided by generations of craftsmanship that have transformed time, nature, and precision into something greater than the sum of its parts. Pure waters from the mountains of Hakushu, Mizunara oak shaped by decades of patience, a blending philosophy rooted in harmony. These aren't just techniques, they're a way of thinking, a quiet pursuit of balance and depth. From the layered complexity of Yamazaki to the crisp vibrancy of Hakushu and the elegant artistry of Hibiki, every whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from and the hands that shape it. House of Suntory. This is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey. Tullibardine Distillery has had a checkered history since it opened in 1947 following the end of World War II. The distillery was founded by the architect William Delmay Evans and sold just 4 years later. It was sold again in 1971 and eventually wound up in White & Mackay's hands. It was mothballed in 1994 and was eventually sold and reopened in 2003. The new owners never quite had enough money to make a go of it and finally sold the distillery to its current owners in 2011. Now, Tullibardine has a solid core range of whiskeys along with annual limited editions. I spent some time tasting through that core range with head blender Stacy Longworth and marketing director Ros Frame this week on a Zoom call. First off, let's talk about the history of Tullibardine. This goes back a long way to 1947, right?
Yes, that's when the distillery was built, basically, in 1947. We actually have a date on our bottle, and you can probably see it behind me as well. It's 1488, so that's a historical date, because at the time there was a brewery and there was a purchase of beer by the King James IV. So we use that as a historic date, but the actual date of distillery founding was 1947 and production 1949.
And I noticed it was interesting. I've been to the distillery before, and it's the only distillery in Scotland that's part of a strip mall.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that from me driving past as a kid, that was what I remembered. It used to be a retail outlet with a Baxter's Soup cafe. It's really actually that is a claim we never considered before. We're the only one that used to be part of a shopping centre. So actually, I don't know when you visited, Mark, but we now own the full site.
Okay.
All the full building is part of our buildings. So we have our bottling plant, we have our maturation warehouses and everything all within the site now. So it's not actually part of a retail, but it used to be back in the day.
Let's go through your backgrounds, because I like to get people when they come on the show for the first time to talk about where they came from. Let's start with you, Stacy. Where did you come from in the business?
So I started off in a lab, actually, analysing whiskey. So I did analytical chemistry on whiskey samples that we would receive from all of our member companies. So I worked there. I did my placement there when I was at university, and then they offered me a job after I completed the placement. So
and this is at the Scotch Whisky Research Institute, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep. So I started there as a lab assistant and worked up to analytical and research scientist. And I moved, this job at Tullibardine came up, and so I moved into industry in 2022, and I've been here ever since. So as I say, it's in industry now, so I'm not doing any of the research on whiskey anymore, but it's moved into something more interesting, I would say.
The Institute has sort of become an incubator for master blenders. So a lot of people started out there.
Yeah, it's a good career route, I would say. A lot of people start out there and then migrate into industry, because probably for the same reason that I had. I was working with whiskey, but I wasn't. The only whiskey I saw was the little sample bottle that would then get run on an instrument. I wasn't in industry. I wasn't seeing the production from start to finish. So it was that connection, I would say, that was lacking in my previous role.
Did you have any family that started out in the industry before you?
None.
None at all?
None at all, no.
What did they think when you decided you were going to work in Scotch whiskey for a career?
It was kind of a family connection that got me into my placement. So my brother lived next to one of the sensory scientists that worked at the Institute, and we were round at their house one evening at Christmas, and I'd actually done the same. I was doing the same degree course that she'd done. So we were chatting, and then she offered, I mentioned that the coming year I was going to need a placement, and she said, well, if you need help with a placement, give me a call. And it just started from there, really. So just a chance encounter with one of my brother's neighbours, and I've ended up here 7 years later.
And Ros, you started out on the PR and marketing side, right?
Yeah. Actually, probably. So, I used to work in various marketing roles before joining the industry, and it was more a personal hobby for me for a bit. So I was in London at the time. My husband, before we were married, we would go to all the tastings, go to festivals, and I just had a bit of a passion for whiskey, and knew that I would like to take my skills and move it over. So I think. So my first role was actually at Pernod Ricard on Chivas, working on Chivas and a little bit of Aberlour on this content side. And then I moved over to Atom Brands, and I was looking after their global PR. So that actually included boutique whiskey, as well as Darkness and a couple of other indie bottlers, and also some gin and rum and advent calendars and all kinds of things, which was great. And then I knew I wanted to move back up to Scotland, and I thought that the opportunities would be rife. So when I moved back up, I was, found Tullibardine, and I've been here ever since. So that's been 4 years, just over 4 years here now. And it's quite it's an amazing role for me because we're such a small team. So I get really involved in everything. I work with Stacy really closely. We look at like NPD and look at new products to bring out. We have afternoons where we'll sample lots of different single casks, and we'll pick the next limited edition for our we have a custodian group, which is like a loyalty membership for our customers and things. So there's lots of really exciting things I get to work on here. Just the size of Tullibardine, like we all get involved with everything. So it's been a great move for me.
How hard is it to market a small single malt?
It's hard, but I guess less hard when you're like really passionate and really interested in it. I think there's a lot of competition. So yes, actually as a brand, I think Tullibardine is like, people have heard of it, but we're kind of under the radar a little bit. And what the hardest part is like getting people to sample and get liquid on lips and taste the product. Because I think then they're always a bit, surprised or really like excited by the product. So that is the biggest challenge, is getting it to as many people tasting it as possible. But yeah, it's hard to compete without the massive budgets that some brands have. We're very conservative with our spending in terms of like our marketing budgets and things. But it's been fun. It's a challenge I like to accept.
Tell me about the Marquess collection.
The Marquess collection started back in, I want to say 2016. Is that a bit right? Yeah.
About then, yeah.
2016. So it was introduced as like a global limited edition. The Marquess of Tullibardine was a Murray called William Murray, and he was involved in the Jacobite Rebellion. So there's a real relevance to like the area, and that's why the name of the collection is the Murray. So roughly once a year we bring out a Murray, and we experiment with different cask types, or we'll do a cask strength bourbon only. So we mix and match a little bit, but it's usually something we wouldn't bring out in our core range, something a little bit different. And the most recent one was the Chateauneuf de Pape cask. So that was last year's edition. And we were quite lucky because our owners are French and own wine, lots of vineyards. So we got some actual Chateauneuf de Pape casks from our own sources. So it was like, we're very lucky to be able to mention it or being able to name that product as a Chateauneuf de Pape cask finish. So it's been quite popular.
And that just came out in the US, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah, this year. I think it was launched over in the US.
Let's talk about the core range now. I've got 3 of them sitting here in front of me. The 12-year-old, the 12-year-old double wood, and the artisan. Let's start with the artisan, because that's the no age statement version.
Yeah. So, Stacy, I don't know, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is our artisan, as you mentioned, a non-age statement. The casks that go into this are generally ex-bourbon with a small portion of refill casks in there and a small portion of dechar rechar. So whilst it doesn't have a finish, it's still very interesting on the palate. You have a lot of those wood extractives, the vanilla, the butterscotch, but there's also quite a lot of floral notes for this, for me, as well, along with the typical fruity, fruit-forward nose that you would expect of a bourbon cask.
I'm getting the fruitiness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry. I get a little bit of the oakiness as well. I think because we also have a sort of a UK equivalent, I guess, called Sovereign, and that doesn't have any of the rechar. So sometimes when we've compared them next to each other, you can actually taste a little bit more of the char, I think, on the artisan, which makes it a little bit more interesting for me, to be fair.
Now, this one's only bottled at 40% ABV. Is it chill filtered?
Yes. It is, yes.
Do you think that takes anything away from the whiskey?
Well, it does through the process, but for stability of the product, for our American markets, it's a must.
Why the American market? Are we picking over here or what?
No, I just mean it's shipping wise, like logistically. You have to think about ensuring that the product is going to look well on shelf and behave well on shelf. And the reason that you do chill filtering is to remove out those potential compounds that could potentially make that haze. And if someone is new to the product, they might deem that a negative aspect or some kind of contaminant, that kind of thing. So to ensure stability, I would say it's necessary certainly under 46% anyway.
Okay. I'm getting a tangerine on the nose.
All right, okay, like a citrus.
Yeah.
A soft citrus. Yeah, that's quite a common note that people pick up with the artisan as well.
Sometimes we'll do food pairings, and artisan and sovereign, we both would pair with an orange chocolate. So we have a nice orange chocolate we do a chocolate tour with at the distillery, and it goes quite well with that. But also it goes with salty and sweet quite equally. It's quite adaptable, really. So yeah, it's quite a good one to pair.
I'm getting on the taste a lot of the fruits, but a little bit of spice too.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of white pepper.
Yeah. That's
a really common note. Yeah, we get that.
Especially on our bourbon products, a lot of people note the peppery spiciness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good.
Have you come across it before, Mark, or is this your first time?
First time tasting this one.
First time tasting. Nice.
Let's move on to the 12 double wood. Tell me about this one.
So this is all ex-bourbon with a portion of it finished in sherry Oloroso casks. So again, you're going to get those vanilla notes, but because it's obviously matured for nearly double the length of time, you're going to get a lot more creaminess.
And a hint of like the Christmas spice a little bit.
I get that on the palate as well.
On the palate, yeah.
Uh-huh. So there's a honeyness to this. A lot of people pick up like raisins, those like fruit soaked, syrupy, tinned fruits.
Rum soaked raisins.
Yes, exactly. And then you do get a little hint of the spice on the nose, just very, very slightly, a little bit of a tingle. And then that really comes through on the palate.
Mm-hmm. Getting the spice, getting the honey.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's Oloroso sherry, right?
Oloroso sherry, yep.
So we do use that quite a lot across the range, and it works really well with Tullibardine Spirit.
Yep. So we use it in the 500. We use it in our 18-year-old. We have a really good supply of Oloroso seasoned casks that we can then use to hive off a portion of the 12-year-old bourbon and then finish for approximately 3 to 6 months to fulfill the 12-year-old double wood.
Mm-hmm.
What does Oloroso bring to a whiskey that, say, a PX doesn't?
Sorry, say that again?
What does Oloroso sherry bring to a whiskey that a PX might not?
So the style of it is generally drier for an Oloroso, and you find you get a lot more like nuttiness, dried fruits with an Oloroso, a lot of more Christmas spice notes. But then with a PX, naturally, because of the process, you've got a very high sugar content, so it's incredibly sweet on the palate. And a lot more mouth coating as well because of that sweetness.
Okay.
I'm probably a bit more of a pro at this right now than I am.
Well, you just said everything I was going to say. It's all like the nuttiness for the Oloroso. Like fruitcake, those sides, but not the syrupiness of the PX that is like raisin juice type.
Yeah, kind of like prune juice.
Yeah. It works. I think because of that nuttiness is a really nice complement to the spiciness of our spirit before a finish. So those two combined actually, it's a dream combination.
They complement each other.
Yeah.
And let's move on to the flagship 12-year-old that's aged in bourbon casks.
Yeah, so this is almost a step before the double wood. So this is the 12-year-old ex-bourbon casks, fully matured, but without that added finish with the Oloroso. You're still going to get those vanilla butterscotch notes, but there's more of like the floral fruity notes come through on this because you don't have the addition of the sherry this time. It's a lot more appley for me, like fresh apple, new apple, green apple.
I'm getting some cotton candy on the nose.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Or Muscovado sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Muscovado sugar is another one we sometimes get from it.
Bit like a toffee apple as well.
Apple's a really common flavour note we get from a lot of our...
Yeah, I would say on our 12 or 15, it's a really common note.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more of the spiciness.
Interesting palate, some baking spices.
Yep.
A little bit of honey.
I would say everything that you get on the nose does actually translate to the palate as well. You still get that fruitiness, that sweetness.
And there's like a maltiness as well. Maltiness to it.
So what are you working on in new product development that you can talk about?
The next Murray.
Yes, we do have, yeah. So as Ros mentioned, we do have this Murray series that we do, that we kind of interject now and again with a cask strength bourbon. So the next Murray, we're on the cask strength bourbon edition. We're on that round. So we're getting the cask brought into Tullibardine in the next few weeks. We're looking to do about 9,500 bottles of the next Murray, and this will be all fully matured in ex-bourbon casks, and it will be cask strength. There will be no finishing on this. So it will just be all of Tully's signature profile on this.
It'll be
on this release.
Fairly similar to this 12-year-old?
Cask strength.
Yeah. So a little bit punchier, I would say.
Yeah.
That should be good.
Yeah, so it's going to be up at the samples that we're getting through, it's going to be up in about mid-50s, 55, 56, something like that.
What's the most enjoyable part of your job?
Question. I'll say first because I think I know me. So when we go to festivals or tastings and it is the customers coming back and saying that they really liked it, that they've like appreciated something that we've done, like the packaging, the taste, or, you know, the presentation of it or whatever, is that feedback for me. That's the best thing. Or also getting to be creative and make new, like coming up with a plan for a tasting night, and yeah, that's also part of the fun. Stacey, choose one.
No, that's a really good point. I really like that, and we did the London Whisky Show this year, and for the first time, I noticed people were coming up to the stand, and instead of saying who's Tullibardine, tell me about yourselves, like where are you based, most people were coming up and saying, I've had Sovereign now, I've had Sauternes, what else do you have? And I've only been doing shows for about 18 months, but that was the first time that most people were coming up to the stand and already knew about us. So that was a really, really exciting development, I would say, in terms of Tully and the role and our exposure and the people that we're now reaching. That was really exciting. It kind of makes everything that we're working on kind of almost silently and a little bit under the radar in these tasting sessions and new product development all the more worthwhile because you feel like you're going to reach people.
Take another sip here.
Go for it.
The palate on the 12-year-old, I'm getting the red apples you talked about.
Yeah.
Along with some the baking spices that I mentioned earlier. There's also a hint of fresh berries that I'm getting.
Okay, like red berries?
Yeah, like raspberry.
I get like a crispness to it, and I don't know if that's the appliness or something, but there is like a crispness to it.
Like the tartness of the raspberry.
Yes, tartness, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, there's a little. Yeah. My other favourite thing about the job is a tasting session, just when we set them up and we get to taste like 15 different single casks, and that is the best bit ever.
How do you avoid palate fatigue?
Okay, Ashton, you're the expert.
Palate fatigue. To be honest with you, the quality here, the quality and the checks that we do is all basically nose related. So your nose can last a lot longer, I would say, than your palate. Obviously, you do get nose fatigue, but we can nose, I'd say, a good 40 casks before you need to really just take a break and have a little walk. But when we do tasting sessions, it's generally about like 15 samples, and we take our time because we want to pick something that we know is going to be worthwhile of a single cask release or a new product that we're going to introduce to the core range. So we take our time with that. There's nothing rushed. So we don't have to work through it quickly. So time is on our side, I would say, in those sessions.
And water between each one. I don't know if that's quite a basic thing, but just to try and cleanse before you start another one. Also, I think we kind of make a lot of decisions on nose and then only mostly try the palate ones. If the nose is off, we wouldn't try every single one, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the three then, Mark? Have you got?
I like this one.
Yeah.
I like the 12-year-old.
Yeah. You prefer the double wood with the sherry edition, or?
But I like them both, but I'm tasting the bourbon cask version still.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me about the ownership of Tullibardine. I know it's French. It's La Martiniquaise, right?
It's not sorry, that's I think that's Glenfarclas that are La Martiniquaise. We're owned by Terroir Distillers, which is part of Picard Vin and Spiritual Group. So we're French owned, so French family business, the Picard family. They started out in the wine business, and then they added spirits to their portfolio. And they took over Tullibardine in 2011. Yeah, 2011. So since then, they made a lot of changes here. There was quite a lot of disruption with ownership. There was a mothballing period for 10 years after White and Mackay mothballed Tullibardine Distillery for 10 years. So it's quite, I'd say, consistent now that the Picards have been in charge, and we're doing quite a good job, I think. But we've actually recently also acquired an Irish single malt as well. So there's a bit of dual working for myself and Stacey on an Irish single malt brand as well, which is quite exciting.
Which brand is that?
So it's a new brand. The distillery is Connaught Distillery, and
which was recently renamed, right?
Yes, by us. Yes. So the new name is Ballina, and that's actually the name of the town that it's based in. So yeah, we've been working on that in the last year and we're just at the launch stage at the moment. We did a PR launch last week in Dublin, so that's been a big part of me and Stacey's jobs for a wee while as well.
Tell me about the whiskies from there, because I saw some mentions about this on social media, but I didn't get a lot of information about it.
So there's two expressions. Yes, you tell us.
Yeah, so there's two products that we've launched. So we've done a double wood double distilled, and we've done a triple wood triple distilled. So the working with the triple especially was quite interesting, because obviously we don't do that over here in Scotland. The double, I would say, is a kind of it straddles both worlds, I would say, between a Scotch and an Irish. But working with the triple especially was very interesting, purely because it's a different profile to Scotch. It's a lot more mellow, just purely down to the whole process of the triple distillation. But we've decided to utilise the maturing inventory of the double stock, because we had it, and it's, Ros will be able to explain more than I can, it's not something you see much in the Irish market, the double distilled expression. So we have the double, which is bourbon and sherry, and then we have the triple, which is bourbon, sherry, and also the addition of a small amount of port as well. So it's quite an interesting product, the two of them, and we think it's it's getting a lot of good feedback. We think it's going to do quite well.
Small batch, really small production, very small stills, and
yeah. I noted the previous owners didn't produce a lot of whiskey.
No. It was small then, and we're keeping that small batch and integrity there, but it's very slow distillation and fermentation, longer fermentation time as well. So it's exciting for us. It's very different to Tullibardine. It's exciting for us to be able to work in that different world and bring something new to the market. And packaging wise, it looks quite visually different for an Irish as well. We've gone with quite a modern visual for the bottles. There is green, but it's not like the stereotype green Irish. So yeah, we're doing a little bit of who our audience are, and maybe that world whiskey drinker, and trying to appeal to that side as well. But it's awesome being able to work on them both. Mm-hmm.
What's the big difference working on an Irish whiskey as opposed to a Scotch?
Question. It's the audience for me. Yeah, I'd say audience are really different. The Irish whiskey drinker is quite different to Scotch whiskey drinker. And obviously we're primarily in the UK, so they're quite an advanced whiskey drinker in the UK on Scotch. Irish, not so much. It's really small here. So our main market is actually domestic for that as well. So Ireland will be our biggest, initially, definitely our biggest sort of priority. So it's great because it's a really small community. We had, as I said, we did a launch and that community was really engaged and very interested in bringing new ones to the market, because there's so much bad news at the moment with distilleries closing down and slowing production. Having some good news in that sphere has actually been pretty positive and exciting. So yeah, I think the drinkers are quite different. They have opinions of Scotch in Ireland, and they're keen for the Irish to be better, to compete with the Scotch. So yeah, probably different for you from the production side, I guess.
I would say, yeah, because it has a completely new step that we don't do anywhere here. The triple, like we don't take it to that point over here in Scotland. Yeah. So working with the profile of a triple distilled spirit is very different. As I say, Irish whiskey altogether is a lot more mellow, and then working with that in terms of blending, it's a lot different, purely because you don't have that punchiness of the that you would typically attribute to like a double distilled product.
Did you have to recalibrate your palate?
Almost, yeah, because you almost, it can, I don't want to say it's bland, because it's not at all, but it's almost, you don't get that astringency, you don't get that that mouth drying, that warming
you expect
feeling that you would expect, that long finish that you would expect from a Scotch, typically anyway. It's not always as apparent, so you're kind of striving for something that you won't really get with that type of product. But yeah, you do. As you say, you have to recalibrate your palate and reassess your tolerances for what the profile needs to be.
Well, I think that about does it. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You'll find a link to the Tullibardine website in the show notes for this episode at whiskycast.com. And that's this week's WhiskyCast In-Depth, brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey.
Our story begins in the wilds of County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland, a place where nature moves slowly and meaningfully. Some whiskies blend in. Glendalough Double Barrel stands apart. I'm Rowdy Rooney, head distiller here at Glendalough, and I personally oversee our whiskey making process from start to finish. We do things slowly, and we do them right. We start with a smooth, single-grain Irish whiskey. We age it in flame-charred American oak for soft vanilla and a honeyed depth. Then we finish it in Oloroso casks from a small bodega in Spain. Casks we season and ship ourselves to make sure the wood is still alive with character when it arrives. That kind of care gives Glendalough Double Barrel its rich layers of dried fruit, warm spice, and signature smoothness. This is a whiskey at its own pace, and it's worth every second. This is Glendalough Double Barrel, crafted to stand apart.
Let's start off the What I'm Tasting This Week department with a couple of the Tullibardines I tasted with Stacy and Ros. First up, the Tullibardine 12-year-old matured in ex-bourbon barrels and bottled at 40% ABV. The nose has a subtle sweetness with touches of cotton candy, subtle spices, and oak. The taste is full of honey, baking spices, brown sugar, and hints of red apples and raspberries, while the finish is long and well-balanced between spices and fruit. I'm scoring it a 93. Now we can compare that one to the 12-year-old Doublewood edition, which is matured in a combination of bourbon and Oloroso sherry casks. It's bottled at 43% ABV, and the nose has touches of rum-soaked raisins, brown sugar, oak, and vanilla. The taste has that same note of rum-soaked raisins, along with a white pepper spiciness that dominates the palate, along with hints of figs and honey. The finish is long with a lingering spiciness, and I'm scoring it a 92. Let's move on now to the latest release from the Glenlivet. Its Jamaica edition is finished in casks previously used for Jamaican rum, and this 12-year-old Scotch is bottled at 40% ABV. The nose has touches of dried flowers, honey, molasses, and brown sugar. The taste has notes of rum, molasses, white pepper, honey, and dried fruits. The finish is long and rummy with a touch of brown sugar. I'm scoring the Glenlivet Jamaica edition a 92. Finally, I picked a special dram for Game 7 of the World Series Saturday night, the 50-year-old Gordon and MacPhail bottling of a 1973 Glenmore from the long-demolished Inverness Distillery. This one was bottled in 2023 at 47.2% ABV. The nose is still aromatic and fruity with touches of apricots, peaches, honey, and vanilla. The taste remains fruity and vibrant with notes of stone fruits, a hint of cinnamon, and white pepper. The finish is long and fruity, and I'm scoring the Gordon and MacPhail Private Collection Glenmore 1973 a 95. And we'll have more on Glenmore in Behind the Label coming up in a few minutes. I'll be adding these whiskeys to our searchable list of nearly 3,900 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out this week at WhiskyCast.com.
Hey again, it's Gabriel from Jewers. Every holiday has that moment when the food's done and the talking, laughing, and sipping begins. That's where the perfect gift shows up. Jewers 12-year-old. Finished in first fill, unrinsed bourbon casks, and crafted by 6-time Master Blender of the Year, Stephanie McLeod. It's the highest rated 12-year blended scotch out there, a gift that speaks for itself. Because holidays aren't about the gifts we keep, they're about the ones we share. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025, Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume.
Let's open up the inbox now and see what people are talking about this week in our community segment. Had this comment from Hugo Dart in Brazil on last week's interview with Tom Mooney of Oregon's Westward Whiskey. Great interview with Tom Mooney. When he talks about having developed good habits that will serve Westward well in the future, he seems to have a clearer head than a few other people in the business. Just as each distillery's financial troubles are their own story, as in Mooney's Tolstoy reference, their way of dealing with those issues in an either victimized or constructive manner probably makes a big difference. And HRC posted this in the app as well. Enjoyed the interview with Tom Mooney. Was happy to hear that Westward seems to have a good path to recovery. And Rick at the Whiskey Zone posted this comment in the app on our interview last month with whiskey writer Lou Bryson. Mark, I wanted to let you know how much I enjoyed the interview you did with Lou Bryson in episode 1128. I've always enjoyed his writing, but after your interview, I now would love to sit down and just enjoy a dram with him. He sounds like a really nice guy. He is. And if you have a comment, question, or suggestion, download the free WhiskyCast community app and join the conversation. You can also find us on social media. Look for WhiskyCast on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. I shared my tasting notes for the Gordon and MacPhail bottling of a 1973 Glenmore single malt a few minutes ago. Let's take a closer look at Glenmore. The distillery was founded in 1892 by James McKinley and Glen Albin distillery manager John Burney. According to the excellent reference site GlenmoreWhiskey.com, construction took about 2 years, with production beginning on December 8, 1894. John Walker & Sons acquired a 40% stake in 1906, and perhaps what Glenmore is most significantly known for happened in 1907. That's when Sir Ernest Shackleton took cases of McKinley's rare old Highland malt on his South Pole expedition. Later scientific evidence proved Glenmore was the source of that whiskey. From 1917 until March of 1919, Glenmore was idle because of World War I. The distillery was one of the last to close for World War II in 1943, and John Burney passed away in 1946 at the age of 91. In 1949, Glenmore became the first malt distillery to replace its floor maltings with a Saladin box for malting. The Distillers Company Limited bought a 46% stake in McKinley and Burney in 1960 and acquired the entire company in 1972, promptly dropping the Glenmore bottlings in favor of using the entire output for blending purposes. In 1980, the Saladin box was closed, and the distillery started sourcing its malt from maltsters, and Glenmore became one of many distilleries closed in 1983. The distillery was demolished 3 years later. If there's something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and of course a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store, or find us on social media. We're on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and the email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, Every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory. This is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Food's gone, stories are flying, and everyone's laughing a little too loud. That's when Dewar's 12-year-old feels right at home. Enjoy the holidays from your friends at Dewar's.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2025, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.